Hey, how's it going guys? My name is Zeal and today we're taking a look at Castle Grimholt, a brand new game just released on Steam, and to answer the ultimate question, is it worth your time? So, Castle Grimholt is a single-player, indie, pixel art, Souls-like action-adventure game. Set on a fantasy, medieval island, you take on the role of a mysterious warrior bound by a pact to slay the infamous necromancer of these lands. You'll be taking on an assortment of otherworldly creatures, discovering hidden areas and people to piece together the game's scattered lore, all while utilising the extremely simple combat system this game has to offer. So aesthetically, the game is clearly 16-bit inspired due to the design of all its visual assets. But what really sold me on an immediate purchase of the game was the raw, minimalistic style they've gone for with their aesthetics. Every single sprite of the game has been created with just enough pixels and impressively subtle shading. It manages to bring everything to life so well, I cannot help but love it. Colours used are quite bold and generally on the colder side of the colour wheel, with plenty of purples, blues and greys to give the game an unmistakable darker, somewhat serious feel no matter where you are located. Lighting effects are pretty non-existent as you would expect from a pixel art game, but the quite rare pretend light effects like the occasional underfoot darkness rising from the soil, the underground light radius effect, and the various enemy attacks are all very charming and provide plenty of immersion both in and out of combat. The textures and details are also impressive. The various stone, wood and dirt textures are all very well illustrated, but were slightly on the busier side when compared to the sprite designs. Fortunately, due to the indistinguishable walk paths and minimal ground clutter used, they've managed to pull it off with flying colours. The UI is pretty much perfect, just your available hearts on screen at all times, with the addition of an enemy health bar during boss fights or a dialogue box when speaking with NPCs. Level layouts are also fine. The general area is basically a large castle in the centre of a very small island, which you can explore in and around. The only problem is the lack of area to explore when you start getting into it, which don't worry, I'll explain later on. Character and enemy designs, as you can probably guess, are by far my favourite visual assets of the game. The minimal design of the protagonist and other NPCs are brilliantly simple, to the point, and have been shaded to pretty much perfection. The bosses, however, often use up considerably more pixels due to their generally bigger size, yet still share this consistent, simple design. I cannot help but genuinely be impressed. Overall, an incredibly simple visual design that honestly I could not get enough of. The OSTs in Castle Grimholt are not bad, a decent blend between orchestral and SFX sounds used to create a gothic, lonely, quite sad feeling throughout, which surprisingly suits the gameplay well. Each track is pretty slow paced with good use of drawn out sounds that of course increase in urgency during boss fights, yet still maintain a drawn out style to each track. They even throw in the occasional vocals during the more intense boss fights, which was a welcomed addition. The track you hear when respawning at the big tree is probably my favourite OST in the game, but unfortunately, similar to Dark Souls, a lot of the exploration experience is met with soundtrack silence, which was okay, but due to the lack of the in-your-face soundtracks that Dark Souls has, they didn't pull off the silence experience quite as well. Instead, I would have preferred a consistent, light soundtrack playing while exploring to keep the experience as immersive as possible. Other sounds like the various attacks, boss sounds, and your consistent armor clanking were all good quality and a pleasure to listen to. Due to the game's simple nature and lack of additional audio like voice acting, the sounds are quite few and far between, but managed to get the job done no problem at all. Now for the gameplay. So Castle Grimholt doesn't have any difficulty options to choose from before you play. It is what it is whether you like it or not, just like every good game should be. It does however have an option in the main menu settings to select the amount of hearts you have throughout your playthrough, which personally I thought was a really stupid idea. The default amount of hearts is set to 4, which is the amount I'd recommend for a decent challenge, but the fact that you can increase them all the way up to a whopping 12 hearts is fucking madness. I had to try the game on 12 hearts just to see what it was like, and trust me, I have more trouble going to bed on time, like my actual bed. Definitely stick to the default 4. If you're really struggling, however, 6 would be the maximum I recommend. The lore of the game is extremely vague. As mentioned, you play as a mysterious warrior bound by a pact to slay the infamous necromancer. It's later revealed that the pact you took was actually a forbidden oath to keep the castle's dark secrets hidden, which this necromancer is actually trying to uncover. Very interesting. The rest of the game's lore is very spread out in the form of interactable objects and NPC dialogue with no clear, concise answers. Your efforts to uncover the game's secret areas, bosses, and NPCs are the keys to shedding light on the game's plot. I wouldn't be surprised if the game also has a true ending when all secrets are revealed before facing the final boss as well. Only time will tell. When you first start the game, you spawn in some sort of vehicle similar to Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. You're shown a few words to explain your character's controls. You roll through the fire and flames, break down the door, appear outside the necromancer's castle, where you can now properly take control of your character and play. As you can tell by the game's minimal art style, the controls are just as simple. You have your standard up, down, left and right movement controls as anyone would expect, with the addition of an attack button and a roll button. Attacking obviously deals damage but occasionally activates a lifesteal effect after a certain amount of attacks, which restores 1 heart. Definitely a lore related ability if you ask me. And rolling provides a short period of invincibility to avoid enemy attacks with. And that's it. Literally no other gameplay mechanics to speak of whatsoever. No level up system, no abilities or passives, no equipment, vendors, collectibles, nothing. Just you, your sword, your mobility, and your enemies. Now that's what I call minimal. Although the gameplay mechanics are on the simple side, the actual combat experience of Castle Grimholt is surprisingly intense. Your invincibility frames after taking damage are extremely short, enemy attacks are very fast and will often catch you off guard, and bosses have a nice chunk of health to keep the difficulty to a challenging yet fair level. Bosses will often try to bombard you with attacks quickly and debuse wide attack arcs often. Most successful boss encounters, however, will consist of 3 things: consistent precision rolling, lifesteal timing, and exploiting very brief openings. The lava boss, however, was a fucker to beat and took me a good 25 minutes to figure out, since he can wipe all 4 of your hearts in less than a second. But once you work him out, he's actually very enjoyable. Overall, an easy to learn, hard to master gaming experience that did take me by complete surprise. So for the ultimate question, is it worth your time? Its charming aesthetics, decent OSTs and incredibly simple combat make for a pure, immersive and challenging gaming experience that I only wish didn't come to an end so soon. I'm going to give this game a 4-star or 80 out of 100. As a certain philosopher once said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Therefore, Castle Grimholt practically oozes with it. I was so captivated by the amount of quality combat crammed into such a bare-bones gameplay mechanic, I didn't want to turn the game off. The short NPC dialogue was entertaining, the level layouts and exploration were never a chore, and the various boss fights were, as mentioned, fucking brilliant. The only major issue with the game is the sheer lack of content. If you don't want to explore and discover the optional content, the game can take literally 30 minutes to complete. In my run, I tried to search every nook and cranny for as much content as I could, which of course took considerably longer. But even then, I don't think I found everything. I wouldn't be surprised if the game has a hidden true ending knocking about somewhere, or at least I fucking hope it does, because that would be a huge missed opportunity. In the game's current form, the possibilities of progression are pretty much limitless. They could patch in new content to the game over time, create an expansion of some sort, create sequels based on the exact same combat style, and much more. My first recommendation would be to get this game released on the Switch, because this is definitely a game I play again regardless of new content. The £6 to £7 price tag, however, is a bit on the steep side for the amount of measurable content you get out of it, whether through secrets or not, but I'd still give this game a score of 80 based on that information, because as I said, I really fucking enjoyed it. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more games I'm supposed to be reviewing each week. I've had a bit of extra time on my hands this week, so thought I'd give you guys some back-to-back review content for a change. I can't guarantee the momentum, however, so don't get used to it. I've also been streaming on Twitch a few times since the last review. If that's your kind of thing, the links are in the description. But as always, all the best guys, take care.